like straight. It's every single really overly on this planet, leading to stars.
Think about it. Your body becomes completely paralyzed, and you just drift through these incredibly vivid, chaotic hallucinations for hours on end, only to wake up and forget almost the entire thing. But here's the really wild part. That total loss of control, it's actually kind of a superpower. Way back in 1862, there was this chemist who was totally stuck trying to figure out the structure of benzene. He falls asleep, dreams of snakes curling up into circles and biting their own tails, and boom, the answer just appears to him, fundamentally changing modern chemistry. And the exact same thing happened to Paul McCartney when he literally just woke up with the melody for the song Yesterday fully formed in his head.
So this brings us to the ultimate question, and I want you to really ponder this for a second. Why do we hallucinate every single night? Why on earth does the human brain, this incredibly advanced, highly evolved organ, decide to completely abandon logic and reason just to run a chaotic, totally irrational movie theater in your head the second you close your eyes?
To figure that out, here is our roadmap. We're going to cover the nightly movie theater, Egyptian weather forecasts, Freud and the unconscious, Jung's universal archetypes, and finally, meaning versus modern mechanics. All right, let's get into it.
Section 1. The Nightly Movie Theater, a high-end virtual reality. For the longest time, scientists honestly just assumed the brain turned off when we slept, kind of like flipping a light switch. That is, until a massive discovery in 1952.
When researchers actually attached electrodes to sleeping volunteers, they realized the brain doesn't shut down at all. It actually kicks off 4 really intense biological mechanics. First up, complete paralysis. Your brainstem sends out this powerful chemical signal to literally lock down your major muscles, mostly so you don't actually punch your spouse while dreaming you're in an MMA fight. Second, realistic hallucination. Your visual cortex just goes into absolute overdrive, making all those weird details feel incredibly lifelike. Third, the disappearance of logic. Your prefrontal cortex, which is your center for reasoning, goes completely offline, and that is exactly why riding a giant chicken to the store to buy bubble tea feels entirely logical in the moment. And fourth, memory wipe mode. The chemicals you need for long-term memory just plummet, basically deleting all that crazy footage the second you wake up.
Moving to Section 2, Egyptian weather forecasts, messages from the gods. Because long before we knew anything about brain chemistry, ancient Egyptians were building dedicated sleep temples.
Back then, dreams were seen as direct messages from the divine. If you look at the historical records, dreams functioned essentially as a weather forecast for your fate. Like, if you dreamed of dying in some terrible way, well, the temple interpreters would tell you not to worry because that was actually a great sign, meaning you'd live a long life. Or what if you dreamed about peeing in the Nile River? Congratulations, your crops are going to thrive and the money is going to flow. It was all about predicting the future. So, fast-forwarding from centuries of those ancient divine interpretations, we eventually hit this massive psychological shift right at the turn of the 20th century. This was the crucial bridge before we finally found that biological proof of REM sleep in 1952.
Which brings us to Section 3, Freud and the unconscious, disguised desires. Sigmund Freud completely changed the game here, dragging dreams out of the divine heavens and sticking them firmly inside the messy human mind.
In 1900, Freud threw out this theory that every single dream is actually just a disguised wish. He famously called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. Basically, he argued that you have all these hidden desires and dark urges that waking, polite societies simply will not let you act out. So your brain creates a safe little playground for you to experience them while you sleep.
But here's the catch, because those hidden desires are usually super embarrassing or socially unacceptable, your brain acts like a censor to protect your waking morality. It encodes these taboo desires into completely everyday objects, and this is exactly what led to Freud's infamous fixation on ordinary things. According to him, if you're dreaming about a key or a stick, while your brain is just frantically trying to disguise male genitalia so you don't wake up totally scandalized.
Section 4. Jung's universal archetypes, shared humanity. Now, Carl Jung was Freud's student, but he took psychoanalysis in a much broader and, honestly, way less scandalous direction.
You can really see the philosophical split between the two of them. Freud was entirely obsessed with the personal, your unique hidden wishes, your dark urges. But Jung, he believes dreams tapped into shared universal symbols, which he called archetypes, that are common to all of humanity. We're talking about figures like the hero, the witch, or the monster. For Jung, your dreams weren't just a hiding place for dirty secrets. They were a profound tool to help your mind find balance and wholeness. And that brings us to Section 5, Meaning versus Modern Mechanics, Survival of the Brain. Once we entered the era of fMRI scans, modern neuroscientists mostly left psychoanalysis behind. They started asking a much more brutal, practical question. Dreaming is incredibly risky and burns a ton of energy, so why on earth would evolution keep it around?
That evolutionary question gave us 5 major scientific theories. Number 1, activation synthesis. Your brain randomly fires off electrical signals, and your cortex just scrambles to find a pattern in all that chaos, spinning it into a story. Number 2, memory consolidation. Dreams are basically your brain's save button, sorting out what to keep and what to trash. Number 3, threat simulation. It's like a VR survival training room. Running away from a saber-toothed tiger in your sleep lets you safely practice real-world survival. Number 4, social simulation. This is the modern version of the threat theory, where you practice social resilience by rehearsing absolutely mortifying scenarios, like showing up to give a presentation without any pants on. And number 5, creativity and problem solving. The limitless creative lab that gave us huge breakthroughs, like that benzene structure we talked about.
But there is a shocking twist to all of this, and it has to do with neuroplasticity. Our brain regions are hyper-adaptable, right? And they are constantly competing for territory, almost like rival countries on a map. Neuroscientist David Eagleman pointed out this mind-blowing fact. If you blindfold a perfectly sighted person, their other senses, like touch and hearing, will start invading the visual cortex in as little as 40 minutes. The brain absolutely refuses to let any prime real estate sit idle.
And this leads us to Eagleman's defensive activation theory, which pretty much flips the entire history of dreams right on its head. Think about our ancestors sleeping in pitch-black caves for 10 hours a night. During that time, their visual cortex was incredibly vulnerable to being hijacked by other senses. So what if dreams are literally just a biological screensaver? The brainstem purposefully blasts random visual data into the cortex every 90 minutes for one reason: to protect your eyesight. This theory turns thousands of years of mystical, deeply meaningful psychology into a brutally practical nightly turf war happening right inside your skull.
So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Are your dreams merely a biological screensaver hardwired to protect your vision? Or are they still that royal road to your deeply hidden unconscious? It's just a wild contradiction to me that humanity has managed to photograph black holes millions of light years away, and we've successfully decoded the entire human genome. Yet, we still cannot entirely agree on why we run this private, bizarre movie theater in our heads every single night. The universe inside the human mind